And welcome back, folks. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I released a film entitled Transformation. And the film is divided into 4 sections. The first section was an attempt to at least cause people to perhaps ask a few questions about reality. How did we get here? Where did civilization actually come from? Personally, folks, I find civilization to be fascinating. Just the whole concept of this civilization that we have now is fascinating. I don't know how we would ever have arrived at something like this by our own means. I mean, it just doesn't seem right. When I think about how people would have lived in tribal situations, I honestly cannot see how we developed into something like this. And so the question is really, what happened? What caused us to suddenly form into a civilization that was so disconnected from the earth? Because obviously there were other civilizations that existed beforehand, such as the civilization that built all the pyramid structures around the planet. The pyramids found in Giza, the pyramids found in China, the huge pyramids that have now been found in Bosnia. And these pyramids are huge. They are much, much bigger than the pyramids in Giza. And they're very, very old. They're covered in dirt. They look like mountains, but they're actually pyramids. Actually, work has been undertaken on several of them to begin excavations to reveal the stones that lay beneath the dirt that now covers these structures. So there were other civilizations that existed on this planet that obviously seem to be far more connected to the earth than what we are today. And so the first section, I was hoping to just perhaps cause people to ask these questions about how did we come up with this, and then to actually see what this is, because what this system is, folks, is simply a meme. It's simply an idea. It's just this concept we have of how reality works. It's this set of fictional rules that have been written down by our masters that tell us we have to behave in a certain way. We have to think a certain way. We have to perform certain actions. And all of it is designed to prevent us from ever being who and what we are. And it's designed to keep us running on this treadmill, collecting paper. Now, there is a huge awakening happening on the planet at the moment. There is a huge shift in consciousness occurring. Whether people believe it's coming or not, it's actually already happening, which is why we are now seeing the treadmill begin to turn so fast, in order to keep people distracted from this huge growing awareness, this huge realization that's occurring within human consciousness of how this system actually works. People are beginning to wake up to what reality is, and they're beginning to realize that they are much more than they thought they were. Of course, there's a lot of other people who are still locked within the matrix. There's a lot of people who are still very, very heavily indoctrinated and locked within the machine. But more are waking up around them, and that's causing the awakening to occur to a greater degree throughout all of the community. Just by default, folks, it's like an exponential curve, and once it starts and once it begins, it just keeps climbing. So we are seeing this, but what we have in place is a system which works very, very hard to keep people locked within its own parameters. That's what our education system is. That's what our business structure is. So I also attempted to bring that to the people. I was just really hoping to create something where people would see how simple this control mechanism is, but more importantly, to see that it's actually there. Now, all through society and through the media today, what we see is massive amounts of subtext, and this subtext exists in all movies, in all advertising. It's basically there throughout our entire social and media system, and all of this subtext and advertising is replete with transhumanism, and it's replete with sexual autosuggestion, subliminal sexual autosuggestion. And all of this sexual autosuggestion is specifically geared towards transgenderism. And if you really start looking into this, folks, what you're going to find is that there has been a huge push towards transgenderism in our media in the last few decades. Whether people have realized it's been there or not, it actually has been there all through the pop music culture, through the cartoon culture, all the kids' entertainment, it's all full of subliminal transgenderism. We've seen a huge breaking down of the barriers between the genders, and we've seen a lot of very, very disturbing underlying messages and themes in children's programming that's been coming out in Disney cartoons and things like this, which are specifically designed to activate children's sexuality very early. But it's not activating normal sexuality, it's activating things that are quite different and actually quite disturbing. And we've also seen an extraordinary amount of effort being undertaken to bring about the complete destruction and domination of the divine feminine within our society. And this is happening on all fronts, folks. It's happening within movies where women are taking on more masculine roles within movies and advertising. They're always being portrayed as being very sexual, but they're always taking on very masculine roles. And men are being portrayed as more and more feminine, and though strong, they're often taking a more submissive role than their female co-stars. Within the pop and music industry, we are seeing more and more video clips that are all about physical appearance. They're all about flaunting your body and being very, very sexually active. But very often the clips don't present anything that could be seen as normal sexual activity, because what you find is that women are often portrayed in a very demeaning way, in a way that suggests it's all about sexual promiscuity and sexual dominance of women. So again, we see the destruction of the divine feminine within the pop culture. And this is very clever the way they do this, folks, the sheer psychology involved in this, because you have on one hand women playing very masculine roles and virtually dominating the men in the business plays. And on the other hand, you have women portrayed very sexually within the film industry, within the fashion industry, and you have people emulating this in their everyday appearance and being portrayed in a very demeaning way. And so you have this left-right, back-and-forth dichotomy going on, these complete polar opposites of each other going on within the minds of people. And it all contributes to the destruction of the divine feminine. And then even within the political spectrum, we're seeing women of prominence rise to power, but these women have nothing feminine about them. And these women are actually doing all that they can to further the destruction of the divine feminine. This can be very clearly seen in places such as my country, Australia, where we see Julia Gillard in power. And Julia Gillard has absolutely done all she can to assist in the destruction of the divine feminine within our society. She's a very cold-hearted and very calculating and extremely disturbing individual. We're also seeing this in America with people such as Hillary Clinton, who is, of course, another extremely disturbing individual. But it's this attack upon the divine feminine that is helping promote this transgenderist view of society. And this is the direction our society is being led in, folks, because the minds of people within society are being moulded by this media machine and all of the subliminals and subtext that exists all around them every day. And what we're seeing is a force, whether it's human or whatever it is, that's attempting to control the evolution of humankind, control the direction humankind is going, and they are bringing about a unnatural splitting of the species through genetic engineering, through transgenderism, and through transhumanism, because it's all tied together. That's the direction that we're going. And this is what I attempted to present to people in the film that I recently released called Transformation. Although I didn't specifically touch on the transgenderism in the film, it was mainly more about transhumanism and the genetic modification that most of humanity seems to be undergoing against their will. I am going to be working on a part 2 of the film to bring you a bit more information, but I just couldn't fit it all in the one film, folks, because it would have been far too long. And I do have several other projects that I'm also working on. But suffice to say, folks, there really is a major attack against humanity that is well underway. There are a lot of forces bombarding the human experience from a lot of different directions. We have all of this subliminal subtext that I've just mentioned, the transgenderism that's being promoted to people. We have the problem of the chemtrails, and I believe chemtrails to be one of the more serious issues that we are facing, folks, because it's one of the hardest issues to alert people to, because people simply don't want to believe this. They don't want to believe that their government could be capable of anything like this, and most of them view it as something out of the Twilight Zone. They just don't see it as a possibility at all. But I truly believe it is one of the more serious issues. Another one of the most serious issues that we face is the wireless technology, the wireless control grid that's being put into place through the use of smart meters, through the satellite grid, through the mobile phones that people carry with them everywhere, because mobile phones do switch your brain. Wireless technology itself switches your brain. I personally don't have any wireless technology at all in my cabin here. I don't have any wireless keyboards, no wireless mouse, nothing like that. I do have a cell phone now, but I keep that in my car and I don't switch it on very often. I look at it once a day to see if my son has sent me any messages. That's the only reason I got that, because I needed to have some form of contact for my son. But I just don't keep it around me, and I don't have it switched on all the time. So we have this huge wireless grid that's around us, and this is quite literally electromagnetic pollution, folks, and this affects you in all sorts of very subtle ways electromagnetically. We have also electromagnetism that comes to people via sources such as HAARP, through the flux that the chemtrails, of course, create in the atmosphere. So there are so many systems in place. And not only that, but we also have the television and the media system, the alpha waves from the television, and the rubbish that people are fed on the television, the rubbish that they're fed by the mainstream media. So it's complete and utter saturation, folks. It's bombardment from all directions. And so what we have to do to combat it is to step outside of our houses, get to know our neighbours, get to know people, have these meetings that I've been talking about, and just help people become aware of the situation that we're facing.